तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। आप्यायन्तु ममाङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुश्रोत्रमनो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदम् अहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्याम् मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत्। निराकरणमस्त्वनिराकरणं येस्तु तदात्मनि विरते य उपनिषत्सु धर्मास्ते मयि सन्तु ते मयि सन्तु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Let us meditate for a couple of minutes. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Swami Vivekananda has been a phenomenon in, I should say, that has actually come to happen. The various ideas, thoughts that he has left behind are not simply that which we have got by mere mental deliberation. Typically, thinkers, philosophers, theologians have a very academic approach in talking out so-called the philosophy of life. Of course, life in its all myriad applications and circumstances. Every department of learning will be covered in their deliberations. But what actually really matters is not what merely they have thought about it, but what they have felt and what they have realized. It's not very difficult to write a book. When we go to the market, we find a lot of books on a variety of topics. Each of these topics are, I should say, quite intricate in its deliberation, quite evolved in the thought level. But quite often we have to ask this question: how how practical they are, and what are the consequences by following that. A person comes up with various editions of a book. I don't want to check names, but there is a version of book that comes and says that the gene codification is everything about human character. And 10 years down the line, the same person comes and proposes a theory which is totally opposite. See, it is not like the science which is trying to work very hard in trying to find the truth. We know, we people who have educated ourselves in the basic discipline of science can very well appreciate the human efforts that have gone into in developing the scientific body of knowledge. There were a lot of sincerity, there was a lot of dedication. So when somebody came up with some kind of a foam model for atom, he really meant business. He really wanted to explain the physical phenomenon using the foam model. And then we had the heliocentric models and so on. A variety of these models, atomic models, have come into, I should say, has been proposed and to the extent even made use of. And the theory was gradually evolving, finally finding its application in our day-to-day life and practice. So likewise, it's pertinent when we do similar such experiments with life, because the scientific investigation is pretty objective in its nature. Correct? You try to create a device. The device becomes defective. You can throw the device and attempt another one. But what happens to the life? Can you throw away this life and attempt another entirely different path? So that's the reason why we cannot say simply that I am helping in the evolution of thought and subject yourself to arbitrary philosophy of life. Well, it is true that every one of us are evolving, even inanimate objects like the planets are evolving. Swamiji says that, correct? In the lecture on real and apparent man, where he proposes the unity as the singular objective of all evolution. He says that religion will evolve if necessary, if required, if it has to go towards unity. Chemistry has to evolve, and the evolution is towards the unity. Physics has to evolve. Way back in the 1890s, he makes this bold statement that the chemistry will stop evolving the day it discovers the element, a single element from which every other element can be manufactured. Likewise, when the unification of force theory was not even being attempted during that time, Vivekananda comes and makes this bold pronouncement that physics will stop evolving the day it's able to find a singular force from which every other force can be manufactured. That was his, sagacious rishi-like vision, which finally every physicist is now pursuing. It's as if he set the trend, himself not being a physicist, neither being a chemist, but he was able to capture the trend of growth, how man as a human being is able to grow. He was able to capture the trend. So the study of the life and message of Swami Vivekananda therefore becomes really very pertinent. It's not a simple portrayal of a heroic character. It's not a simple portrayal, vain portrayal, that we come here, think highly about him, praise him, and then leave without any takings. That's really not going to be of any help to us. Neither we are any helping Vivekananda by any way, for that matter. Because here is the man we have who has actually shed his heart blood. In 86, when Ramakrishna Paramahamsa passed away, it was hardly about 3.5 years of association with Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Not much. You see, the kind of kinship and friendship that we enjoy runs through several decades. But how much of transpiration happens between us? A student comes into IIT, and then he stays here for 4 years, BTech, correct? 4 years, how much of thing transpires between the human personalities? But here is Vivekananda, who had hardly about 3.5 years of contact with Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, and got his entire life transformed. And in 1888 or so, he took up this ordeal of trying to find the truth for his own. And he was on his legs. He spanned the whole of Bharat in a manner that he could learn. He didn't shunt himself in forests, but rather he was not very much into being, showcasing his talents and skills and be applauded. That was never his objective. But rather he tread the ground with his 2 legs, often barefooted and empty pocket, and had the first pulse and the throb of the nation. Where is this nation heading towards? So while we talk about the personality development or various kinds of motivational topics that we derive from the life and message of Vivekananda, were all discovered through hard practice, going through several years of hardship. Each of the truths that he pronounced were not simply silent, solitary, AC room deliberations. They were all practical realizations that he felt which will be necessary for the people of India at large to get benefit from. The India that he saw was under total subjugation of the whites. And that is entirely a deplorable condition, a chapter which it is safely forgotten, if not forgiven. So that was the India which Vivekananda saw. And then he chalked out a plan to wake up the masses. So the Vivekananda that we fancily talk about is the Vivekananda who was dying to actually bring the nation back on its heels. He was so desperate. In fact, he says, I went to abroad. He says that I have come all the way to this foreign soil, seeking the help from the Westerners, so that we, brethren in the East, may have our little dole of food. But then he says, I only know how difficult it is to get help from the West, from the Western land. They were not all that charitable. Why will they be? What do they get from it? It's their hard-earned money. If you want, you work hard. So that was very practical. And you see clearly now where the India is heading towards. It is Atmanirbhar Bharat. So India has now pretty well advanced exactly along the vision which Swami Vivekananda had, and he has defined it in various ways. He lived a life, he left a legacy in his life and message. Not only that, he trained a band of young firebrand men and made them carry the message, hold the torch aloft and make it known to the public at large, and keep the machine rolling. So the other day we had Aurobindo's the holy day of reckoning, and holy Aurobindo was one of the person who was inspired through and through by Vivekananda. You take Subramanya Bharati. He was, again, Swami Vivekananda was an inspiration for him. Mahatma Gandhi, again Swami Vivekananda was the inspiration. I mean, it's very easy to say that I am inspired by someone. But if we just take a like a Simha Avalokanam, turn the head back and look at the sands of time, the amount of blood and sweat they have shed on the soil, that we will know how serious they were and how much serious we have to be when we take the name Vivekananda. It's not a name or a force that we can actually take so easily. And it is not a simple heroic portrayal. That the Chicago posture is a kind of an invitation for anyone to see what manliness is, what strength is, what boldness is went through. So we as individuals, we as the nation's bright elements, the bright product, the bright produce, will have to imbibe this austeric culture if we want to realize the vision and the aim of Vivekananda. That tapasya, that austerity is necessary. It's not a magic that we can just with a throw of a wand get it effected. It's just at the beginning of this, I was referring to Saptarishi. That it is not a lapse video that we can see a quick bloom of a flower or even growing of a banyan tree from a seed to its full blown canopy within a matter of 5 minutes. Life doesn't obey this kind of lapse video requirements and demands. It is something that we need to culture grain by grain, cell by cell. It takes 12 years for entire cell in your body to get replenished. Till the old cells of slavery and sloth is removed from our constitution, I think Vivekananda will only be in our dream, not in reality. And therefore, it's very, very pertinent that we discuss a topic like this, the skill in action, the Vivekananda way. Well, the discussion as generally known about Vivekananda is, he is a spiritual person, right? So typically yoga will come into picture and then the matter goes beyond control because the speaker will never be able to connect with the listener. So I have carefully targeted this entire discussion, I should say, rather than presentation, to topic which is nothing to do with Karma Yoga. Because Karma Yoga is not something we can talk over a tea table. Karma Yoga is a serious business and it requires a lot of preparation. And one such preparation possibly may be the topic which is skill in action. Well, action, work, all these things also have several synonyms. Let's try to make a pyramid of synonyms. Vocabulary well placed solves half of our problem. Displaced complicates our problem. The broader approach, starting from the broad, we shall try to narrow down. Okay, so the broad base, we have a huge triangle, the blue triangle, which we are all familiar with. Exertion is basically physical in nature and it uses raw power. Whenever you say I am exerting, you typically mean to say you are using raw power. This word exert is used in weightlifting. It's used in weightlifting, where you build a lot of thrust and convert the thrust into the action of pulling, lifting. So the word exert has a lot of physical component. So what does it mean? In the plane of work, exertion will be a kind of an energy transfer from one medium to another medium, from one body to another body. So typically, it will be in the common parlance, one after another, you take the brick and then put it outside. A quite amount of work is done. You cannot say no. But it's all exertion. So a slightly better form of work will be like effort. So an exertion is something where you use raw power, and in effort the raw power is directed towards a specific purpose. And typically the purpose is self-driven. So in the labor, for the laborer, moving the pile of bricks from one end to the another end was not his job. Rather, maybe his job, but was not his prerogative. It was a dictate, a command, an order that he executed. So it was never his requirements to begin with. But the same exertion becomes an effort the moment you individualize and personalize the exertion. So subsequently, you will never say, suppose you are studying for an examination overnight. You will not say, I am exerting. You will say, I put a lot of effort. Correct? You will never say, I exerted. Exertion will be only on something which is unconnected. You exert your influence on another person. You will say, I efforted an influence. You will never say. You exert an influence. Because it's external. And it may not comply with his requirements, with his state of mind, with his circumstances, with his objectives. So that's when exertion becomes effort, when all of them are present. Clearly, when objective is present, it becomes an effort. See, you remember, action is involved in all of this. And skill is involved in all of this. That's the beauty of the topic. It opens up at whatever level, like an onion being peeled. At whatever level you want, you can inspect that onion. And still you will have something more to explore. Now, when effort comes into picture, then naturally an efficient work is something that needs to be paid more attention to. Every effort doesn't become an efficient effort. So when you are talking efficiency, what are you trying to do here? You are trying to reduce your exertion and improve the effort. Effort not being compromised, but the exertion is being now properly applied, checked, so that you have maximum returns for optimum input. So the efficiency comes into picture. Here again lies your action. And here again lies how skilled you are in making your work efficient. From efficiency, then you move to excellency. So, as the term suggests, insists that efficiency may be with regards to the work per se, because it talks only about the input and the output. Correct? It's an energy efficiency, or what you may call this. But objective efficiency also it's quite likely to be handled. But a work becomes excellent. The work becomes excellent if you break what is called as, there is a you leverage on the earlier exerted effort. When you leverage on the earlier exerted effort, then the output becomes excellent. For instance, now this lecture is happening, there are about a dozen or 10 of you listening to this, but at the same time, we have the streaming leveraging on this effort and casting it to an open network where other people also can see, not only live but also. So now an efficient transfer, a mechanism where we are able to pull in the people and a work done efficiently is now made excellent by actually scaling up the expected output for the same work. So then you are talking about excellence. Suddenly you find that there are so many other factors that actually guides the output of the work that is done. Now we are slowly moving to the apex. The work, all up to excellence, it is being seen objectively. Objectively, I can always ask this $1 billion question, so what for me? So me, the person who is the actor in the center stage of all this world of activities, what is it that got to me? Why is it that I should be the center stage in this action? So am I enriched? So the work that is being done will have to enrich yourself. Now the question of enrichment can come along various perspectives. One of the enrichment may be physical in nature, that how much compensation I get for my work. So, but that's physical. That's totally physical. If your house is robbed, do you mean to say that all the work that you have put up to excellency is lost? Because you have converted all of that into material prospects. And the material prospect, the moment you get robbed. You get robbed up to the level of excellency, everything is gone. So can that amount to your individual enrichment? Nothing. So the enrichment that we are talking about is not going to be a material advancement, not at all objectively, but it's going to be subjective. Subjective. So whether as a subject, as an actor in the center stage, do I enrich my personality so as to not exit the pyramid, but stay well within the pyramid consistently at that level of enrichment. So that, when I do an excellent work, effort exertion is involved. The later ones doesn't contradict the earlier ones. It holistically integrates the earlier ones. So the enrichment makes you perform all the earlier stages of activity in a much better manner, so as to further the cause of your doing itself. You can always, the $1 billion question of why is it that I am doing this, quite often is unanswered, by the way. It's not something that can be, an answer cannot be got for a mere asking. It is something that needs to be discovered. And each one of us will have to engage in this search. Because the answer that I get may not really suit your taste. By the very fact of the color of the dress that we are wearing, clearly insists that our tastes are different, our objectives are different, our methods of enrichment may be same, but the objectives and the ends of enrichment are different. But does it stop here? Is the pyramid stopping here? I want to stop here rather for this discussion, but the pyramid still has an ascent. I haven't reached the apex yet. The apex is actually enlightenment. The apex is enlightenment. And the work ensures that we all get it. Provided we climb this pyramid in this manner. It's not something from an exertion I can directly jump into enlightenment. We will come to that shortly, why it is not possible. Okay, so a brief tour into an Upanishadic message. This is of all the passages in Upanishads, besides the so-called Mahavakyas, the grand utterances, if somebody will ask me personally, individually, which is that I will recommend for people to emulate, it's this. This is something which is very inspiring, invigorating, and it keeps you continuously on move. It doesn't give a verdict. It doesn't give a verdict. Any statement which has a verdict, it's done and dusted. It's done and dusted. There will be nothing more that can be done after that. Mahavakyas are done and dusted. It's so grand that we hold on to it, but it's dusted. There's nothing more that you can do about it. But here, in this particular verse, you will see it's applicable at all levels of existence, and it takes you along the growth path. So the statement that says, Yadeva, whatever, Yadeva karoti, whatever is being done, how it is done, the method is prescribed. Vidyaya, so that is equipped with proper knowledge. One has to be sufficiently knowledgeable to engage in an activity. A carpenter cannot do a smithy's job. Rather, he is better doing nothing than venturing into smithy's job. Correct? So, Vidyaya, the Vidya is very important. Okay, so here I am taking Vidya in a colloquial notation. Okay, so all these Shastric words have got multiple interpretations. But over the period of time, the interpretation has taken a variety of connotations that it helps us to interpret the same statement in a manner that is suited for our evolution and growth.
What is the English translation for Vidya?
I'll come to that. I don't. Monisha is asking for the English translation. I don't want to jump into that. The reason is the next slide is going to be a surprise. Okay, so this is well planned in that sense. But I am happy that she raised this question. Karoti Shraddhaya, that was the topic of our last class. You put your will behind. Upanishada has got a connotation of concentration also. So Tadeva, if a work has got these three components, Tadeva, that work, Viryavataram means it becomes fruitful. Actually, fruitful is a very, very understatement of the term Viryam. Viryam is what I told about enrichment. In the apex of the pyramid, at least up to which we have ascended, the Viryavataram is the enrichment. It gives you the desired objective and gives you a subjective growth. That is Viryavataram. So what are these three? Let us get to the translation in the words of Vivekananda. So he says, this is one of the definitions which Swami Vivekananda gave about education. In fact, I think this is very much suited for every one of us, at whichever level of striving we are in. Of several definitions, this is one very elaborate definition. The popular ones you all know, right? Education is a manifestation of perfection within, where perfection is something which is quite difficult to comprehend, by the way. Because perfection is always seen objectively. But no, perfection there is again subjective definition. Often it is mistaken as perfection in objective. Anyway, then there are a few other definitions. So likewise, this is one such definition. I don't know whether you are aware of it. You may be. It's a training. Vidyaya, Swamiji translates it to training. So training clearly means that you know the works. A carpenter should know the works. Since he doesn't know the works, he should not go and try to play the role of a smithy. Correct? So it is a training. So first the training is necessary, which is Vidyaya, by which the current and the expression of will, Shraddha, the moment you have Shraddha translates, Shraddha is actually, it's an uninvested force of energy within you. But its manifestation is seen in what you call as the will that you set. What you call willpower. Suppose you decide that you did so. All of you entered into this grand portals of learning by willpower. It was not an easy entry into this institution. You all worked very hard, single-minded, and then without any diversions, like a racehorse winning to win the race. All of you trained yourself and then applied yourself, set the will and achieved the purpose of it. So that the expression of the will is actually happening because of Shraddha. If Shraddha was lacking in you guys, upfront it would have been difficult for you to set the will. In Sanskrit, this also goes with the name Sankalpa. Sankalpa is the will. Okay, so is brought under the control that Upanishada is the control. Because what happens is that, how do you control a particular activity within your own self? An outgoing mind can be controlled by concentration. What did we do at the beginning of this presentation? We had 2 minutes of self-reflection. What was the necessity for that self-reflection? It was simply because the mind which has been scattered away is been collected to come around an epicenter. The epicenter of the objective of this class. So that collection is nothing but concentration. Correct? So, brought under the control, that control is actually Upanishad. And then, what happens? Only then, the action becomes fruitful. So, the skill in action, which is clearly objective oriented, if that needs to be attained, then we need to pay attention to all the 3 boxes. If you can tick all the 3 boxes, then you are sure that you have actually achieved the skill in action. So this is Vivekananda's as well as the Upanishadic way. We have just begun. So the moment we set a target like this, it doesn't mean that we start acting over smart and leaving our own fortune. See, the fundamental laws of growth are already there intrinsic in our constitution. It is not that we have to be something different from what we are currently in order to say that these laws are functioning. See, what actually I would like to say here is, you look at your neighbor, the neighbor has purchased an Audi car. Okay, so he had a jackpot, maybe a good business, and out of the business, he wishes to flaunt his prosperity, and then he buys an Audi car. So now you look at the Audi car and then think, Acha, how nice it would be for the Audi car to be in my Portugal. And then what did he do? Oh, he did this. Acha, he invested in stocks. Okay, let me also invest in stocks. Man, he has been investing in stocks because he is studying the market for the last 15 years. He knows the trend of the market just as he looks at the writing on the palm. And knowing that he has excelled well in stocks, if I suddenly plant myself in his footing, do you think I will be successful? No. I will train myself within 6 months. I will put all my will into it, and then I will control all the abilities within me. How much ever you try. But then the last 15 years you have been doing something. You were not idle. You had your own pet. You have petted your own little prospects and futures. What happened to that all of a sudden? Do you need to ditch that and go elsewhere? Not necessary. In order to excel, in order to enrich yourself, in order to be efficient and so on, the objective is not to change your footing. Swamiji says the objective will be that a fisherman should become a better fisherman. A tailor should become a better tailor. Anybody who is pursuing a profession should be able to enrich himself in the same profession. That he should not lose faith in that profession. That's very important because he already has invested a yaman amount of years and effort, more so, to become that. So why would we require to all of a sudden ditch that approach and then go elsewhere? So that means he undermines the work and gives more priority to the outcome. So that is not, that will actually destabilize your own, not only philosophy, but your own performance in life. Okay, so learning to perform better in critical situations. Why do we need the 3 boxes to be ticked? It is not to change the profession. It is not a profession selection criteria. Whichever profession we are in, we are trained. In that profession, there are critical situations where we need to navigate. And for that, we need learning, we need fortification. And that's where the skill is necessary. So here, where do we begin? Where do we begin actually addressing this requirement of understanding the nature of skill? See, if you see, in anybody's engagement in the pursuit of whatever prospects, there are 3 factors involved, maybe more, but we will limit it to 3 and we will see how well they are connected. Naturally, the ability is something which we need to acquire. Carpentry and smithy, 2 diverse professions. So, only ability chooses which profession you are going to engage yourself. Now, you may have the ability, but that ability needs to be put into force. For that, you require, for example, much of theory and less of practice. Actually, the rift between this is actually creating a rift between ability and skill. So skill requires much of, practice. These days, people would like to do a lot of administration. MBA is on the pick. Everybody wants to do administration. Then who will do the work? If everybody wants to do administration. The reason is, administration has become a hoodwinking skill. I'm not saying that the profession is just that. No, but it has been brought to that. If you can speak continuously for half an hour in unbroken grammar, in whatever business language, and then use fashionable vocabulary, a little bit of salting and peppering with technical words, you are considered literate. It's easy to hoodwink the masses because not everyone is master of the subject. Correct? So it's always just as the way I'm talking to you guys. So you are listening to me on some basis, and my vocabulary may be sometimes flashy, sometimes it may be a bit abstruse, but that doesn't mean I possess the knowledge. Never it is guaranteed that the speaker possesses the knowledge. I may not, but it is only the skill that's going to tell. So what does skill here mean? You put me on the ground of action and you watch me 24/7, I will be giving you the clear picture of my integrity, my knowledge, my performance. Correct? So, one of the most important skills that we need to possess in action is commitment. When you say something, you have to stand by that. That is very, very essential in upskilling oneself. And you will find that the commitment that you actually build for yourself is coming only when you get the skill. So the ability has to be honed into skill. And from the skill, naturally you go and show your performance. And the performance will further enable you. A person who gives the highest performance in the 100-meter race, do you think he is satisfied with it? He has reached the utmost ability up to that point in time. We find that the next Olympics come and the records are being rewritten. So that means there is furthering of ability. So how is it that this triangle is so intricately connected? What is it that is actually connecting all these three? It's practice. The repeated, Swami Vivekananda insists, he says, habit You have to make practice a habit. He says that habit becomes your character, becomes your second nature. He begins with saying that it becomes your second nature, and he corrects himself. May becomes your first nature, becomes your nature itself. He begins with saying in a softer tone that habit forms your second nature. Then he corrects himself saying, no, that forms your nature itself. So that habit of practice is going to keep you rotating in this triangle. Better it was a circle, but quickly I could get this picture from the internet. So thanks to Adobe Photoshop, in one of the the trimming exercise, they have given this picture. All right, so this you have a connecting thing in the middle, which is habit formation. You have to get into the habit of enhancing your ability. You have to get into the habit of converting that into skill. You will have to get into the habit of converting into an excellent performance. Never can you remain satisfied. And by that, we can keep approaching the apex and reach up to enlightenment, or at least enrichment. Okay, now for a short quiz. After having done this much amount of, thrashing some basic ideas, can you answer this quiz? Okay, Saptarishi tells passionately. For success, you have to work, and there are 5 choices. So there are about 9. So you can get 2 people for 1 choice, I guess. So anybody quickly? Yeah, sir? Zestfully. So 1 and 4? Excitedly. Madam? Passionately. 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 5. Possessively. Passionately. Sir? Passionately. Okay, let's see what Swami Vivekananda says. None of them. Then what is necessary? For success, you have to work calmly. In fact, in the secret, in the book that is going to be shared with you, I guess it is there in this book. He talks about this very point, that he says, during my days of, of course, I'm just giving you an abstract of what he said, not exactly in the language. He says, even I was believing once upon a time that it is passion. It is working passionately gets most of the work done. But as I grow older, I come to understand that lesser and lesser of passion I have, greater and greater amount of work is achieved. Man, it is coming from Vivekananda. It's coming from Vivekananda. It's time for reckoning. Let's gird up our loins and then think little peaceful moments. We need calm moments. In fact, in none of the earlier emotionally pitched sentiments is going to help you in achieving success. Because skill is meant for success. It's not for skill's sake. We are totally objective oriented. You set an objective and you have to attain it. For that, skilling is necessary. And he says that such a thing is possible only if your mind is calm. I mean, this was a great learning. And to substantiate this, he says, the calmer we are, the better for us. And the more the amount of work we can do. So the more the amount of work we can do, friends, look at the pyramid. At which level you want to operate? At which level? At the bottommost level? Or at the near apex level? You can choose. The philosophy doesn't dictate your choice. It only puts upfront a variety of choices and says that this will have such a consequence. You want to have a calm mind and put an effort? Exert, do that. A laborer will be a better laborer if he does the exertion calmly. Because we all know that the moment we get mentally agitated, the amount of energy that is lost from your constitution is practically immeasurable. The moment you become angry, it is momentary insanity. I'm just taking an extreme instance, correct? So where the calmness is completely disturbed, and then we know the amount of energy that we are lost after what you call splits of anger. You see people taking deep breaths, correct? They sweat a lot and then they sit and rest for a while. Why? Because there is so much amount of heat generated, there is so much amount of energy that is lost. How much can you keep track of? Often people have gone unconscious because of uncontrollable. It's called thermal runway. In the lithium batteries, you have thermal runways. So you have a thermal runway within your brain, and you don't know where to stop. So that's why they used to call anger as momentary insanity. So I am convinced that the calmer I am, I shall be able to get the better work done at whichever level stage in the pyramid. So in the two different choices that we had, a bag of choices and a singular choice, the difference was as much as between subjectivity and objectivity. See, when you are possessive, when you are zestful, when you are passionate, what you are doing is you are coloring the work by your consciousness, by your ego, by your emotions. So you are becoming too subjective in the particular action. We all know the moment you take subjectivity into consideration, into play, you know how poorly you are equipped. We can give an easy example. A surgeon wants to do surgery, topmost surgeon, heart surgery. And if the patient is supposed to, is the wife of the surgeon, do you think he can do the surgery properly? In fact, the team of doctors will dissuade him from even coming near the ICU. They will not permit him. Why? He has knowledge, he has training, he has the willpower. But subjectivity is lost. The objectivity is lost. Okay, leave the surgery part. Take our justice in the court of law. When the judge is hearing the case, he cannot indulge in taking sides. The moment he shows indulgence, it's called indulgence technically. The moment you show indulgence, he loses the chair. For the very simple reason that he has lost objectivity and he cannot discern the truth out of what is happening in front. Each of the sides, the prosecutors and the lawyer, they will fend for themselves. They are meant to take the sides. You need a person, the neutral guy in the middle, who will not take sides, and only from such a person you can expect the truth to be pronounced. Objectivity. You see, in all matters that means business, you have objectivity coming and salvaging you. Okay, what about sports? You have the referee. The referee has to be clearly objective. Red cards and yellow cards have to be given properly in the game of football. Correct? Currently, of course, you have the third umpire. So otherwise, cricket I would have taken as another example, because now the umpire in the ground is a puppet. He is just a book. So now you understand why calmness is necessary, because by calmness you increase the objectivity and reduce the subjectivity, and that enhances the performance. Again, the same book on work and its secret is going to talk about your choice of whether you want to do the master's work or the slave's work. And the choice will obviously be the master's work. Be loud. At least let us say things aloud. It will be master's work. But what is master's work? What is master's work, my dear friends? It's very, very easy to fancy this choice. You can always fancy something bigger, but there must be a method to attain it. That's where we require a lot of integrity, a lot of commitment, and a lot of, willpower. Shraddha is actually coming into force. What actually means master's work? Shall we see the next slide? I think I have something for the making. So it's a reading from possibly the same book. The whole gist of this teaching here, he means Karma Yoga, the work and its secret, is that you should work like a master and not as a slave. Work incessantly. Incessantly means not stopping, continuously. Don't take a break. The sense doesn't mean to say that you don't sleep, don't rest. Doesn't mean that. Incessantly means don't take a break in purpose. If you start with a purpose, till the purpose is accomplished, never change the purpose. The incessantness is shown in the holding on to the purpose. You will find at this juncture, I would say, Ramakrishna mission. I'm not saying just because I'm part of the mission. What really impressed me being in the foothold of this mission is that the constancy in purpose. We start a small study circle like this, and then continuously there are efforts that are kept to keep. It is just a one, the proof is there in the pudding. A small school is started in a remote village, and there the monk goes. He begs all around the place, and then keeps the heart beating. Initially, he puts one shed, and then he makes 2 rooms and puts 2 sheds, and then he brings in more chairs and benches inside and increases the occupancy, and then slowly he makes an institution out of that, much for the larger benefit. So this constancy in purpose is something which is very, very essential, and we need to imbibe it in our daily walk of life. We see that is the incessant work that Swamiji is asking us to do. That the purpose should be held aloft. And if you hold aloft the purpose, then you are a master. If your purpose keeps on changing every now and then, this moment one and the next moment another. And why do we usually change the purpose, by the way? If you think a little while, you will come to know it's because the earlier purpose, while were you engaging in it, you met a dead end. There was something which was difficult to surmount. And then you thought that, okay, it's wasteful of energy, and then you change. So how long are you going to change? At some point in time, you have to dive deep. It's the famous example that we get from, Sri Ramakrishna. There were 2 farmers. One farmer both of them wanted to irrigate the field. So there was one guy who kept digging, he didn't get water. He left that place and started digging another place, he didn't get water. He left there and started a 3rd place. After 5-6 places, he got tired and went back home. So by noontime, he was not able to hit the water line. So he went back home. His wife came and said, "Arey, why do you struggle so hard? Come back home and then rest a while and then start again." So he listened to that and went back. But there was another guy, he said, "No, I am going to find the water," and he dug a single one place. But it took him 9 to 10 hours, untiringly, undeterred. He did that, and when he struck the water table, subsequent to which he sat down and had a puff of hookah. That's when he rested. Not until he hit the water table. So that working incessantly, no doubt that it was because the example says that it's just one day, but it is constancy in purpose that is very, very important in our styling the way we work. Nobody can be altogether at rest 99% of mankind work like slaves. My dear friends, 99%, that's a huge number. I mean, given the population that we have in India, we will be very much included into that. We are governed by our whims and fancies. The fancy should be fancified and then left at that. Real purpose needs to be worked out. We have the ability to do that. And the result is misery, and it is all selfish work. So being a master simply means you are wedded to the purpose. Many of the guys write UPSC examination, they become IAS officers. When they take the charge as an IAS officer, or when they take the oath under the cloak of law, they all are well-abiding citizens. But why is it that we see so much of disharmony when it comes to social and public administration? I am not taking any specific reference to a particular violation, because which one will we take? Why there is so much unrest? The reason is each one of them started with a holistic purpose, but they were unable to stick on to that. The master becomes a slave exactly in this way. This is what Vivekananda wanted to check. That the moment we become skilled and performing and able, till then we were purposeful, and once actually these character things start showing up, our purposes, they get deflected. Maybe we are succumbing to pressure. But if you succumb to pressure, then that's a slavish attitude. Succumbing to pressure is a selfishness. It's exactly going along. So 99% of us are succumbing to pressure. So the constancy in purpose and delivery is very important. Whatever you take, spiritual, spiritual, worldly, worldly, you don't have to switch your boots. It doesn't ask, it doesn't tell you which profession you need to take. It only tells how you need to pursue your progress in it. Finally, almost I am coming to the end, but I still have about dozens of slides. I will break here. This is one of the very, very inspiring message which I got from Vivekananda. Vivekananda was never for imitation. The choice between whether you want to be original or you want to be imitating, it's very clear, just as between master and slave. But again comes our commitment. In what way do you want to be original? If I look at you guys, each one of you have the original face. That's why that instrument is working. Correct? That instrument otherwise will fail. So the Creator made us original. Made us original. What to talk about the Creator? What about the life that you have made for yourself? See the dress that you're wearing. No two guys dress the same. We live through freedom. Ultimately, it's our own choice. Man is the maker of his destiny. Our every little choice goes through our priorities, our preferences, not losing sight of the prospects. But only thing that is being added into this is, Swamiji says, do all that, but be like a master. We are already free. We are already original. We are made original. But why should we convert into imitation? Why should I borrow someone's idea and live for that idea? I have an idea and I'll live for it. What does it matter if my neighbor is going to say something? You know, the station of life which I am currently in had to go through several such, soul-searching questions from the people around, that whether will they look upon me as a failure. That a person who wants to withdraw himself from worldly pursuits, is it being done with the attitude of chi, these grapes are sour? That's one possible viewpoint people may take, which of course is not going to disturb the decision. But it is a compelling argument which will bombard against me at some time of reckoning. Whether did I choose this path just because I was unsuccessful in life, which was not the case, fortunately, which was not the case. But there are people who take decisions. But then I stand upon the decision that I take for myself. Not by what the people dictate or what they expect out of me, but it's me that wants it. It's not a brainwashing. It's digging out your own heart throb and find out where actually it can truly manifest. That's originality. Not grafting one hibiscus and another lily, grafting together and getting a new environmentally sensitive flower. Is that the purpose? So being original was Swamiji's message. And with the next slide, we will come to an end. One example, Swami Bodhananda Maharaj. He was a disciple of Swami Vivekananda. He got a sannyasa diksha from Vivekananda. They were a band of about 12, 13 or so. They were very illustrious. Each one was a particle of Vivekananda. There was a stamp of Vivekananda. That doesn't mean imitation. The particle of Vivekananda is not the biological organization. Correct? The Vivekananda spirit. When we say Vivekananda, it's a spirit that we refer to. And Bodhananda was one such. He was asked to start a center in Varanasi. At that time, he was just yet another budding monk. I mean, maybe 5-6 years he had been in the company of Vivekananda. So just then, he was born in 1974, by the way. Much later. 1874, sorry. Or maybe 78, one of these days. So he was very young, and then Vivekananda called him and then said, hey, there is a guy in Varanasi. He wants to donate some money. And then, can you start a center? 20 years old or 21 years old. He has to, in the pre-independence days, you can imagine the amount of financial struggles, economic constraints people have, and Swamiji says, go and start a center. Center like Chennai Mutt, whatever. So Bodhanandaji said, brother, he says, see, I am not an erudite scholar. And I am not a skilled professional in any line of business. So, do you think I will be able to do? It is a natural apprehension anybody will have. The person who is in early 20s. Correct? You guys are in early 20s, right? So, suddenly you are dropped into the middle of the nowhere and ask you to start an institution. Do you think you will be able to do it? But that was the predicament which Bodhananda was going through. And then Swami Vivekananda says that, it is not recorded here, he says, you don't have to imitate a scholar. I am giving you the essence. There is no necessity for you to become someone to do this. You be what you are and you achieve this. In your own footing, you will be able to do this. Because that each one has got his own strengths. The amount of energy and power that is potentially realizable in each one of us is actually unknown to us. And we oftentimes forget that aspect and look for support here and there. A support here and there is so long helpful as long as it helps us to dig the power from within. And that's what is originality about. So Bodhananda was advised. He says, imitating is not going to give you life. Be original. Don't think somebody achieved it with his scholasticism. Doesn't mean that you have to be a scholarly in order to achieve the same goal. Somebody was a skilled professional to achieve certain milestones. It doesn't mean that I too will have to be so for that particular achievement. I can achieve in my own style. That's Vivekananda. And Bodhananda did that. Not only that, he was sent to abroad. He was sent to US in 1907. He started a unit in Pittsburgh. You see, when he went to US, 1904 he went to US, okay. 50, 44, 46. He was 34 years old when he went to 30 years old. He was about 34 years, yeah, near about that, when he went to US, New York. That time he helped Abhidanji Maharaj. Then Abhidanji passed away. And then he, no, then he was sent to Pittsburgh. In Pittsburgh, he was there between 7 and 10. And I think near about 12, Abhidanji passed away. And then Bodhanji came back to New York to resume the office. But in Pittsburgh, he became a hero. His lectures were all well received. I mean, he was showing a lot of purpose in his presentation, in his convictions. Upfront, he admitted that he is not a scholar, but then the ideas that he has imbibed by living with Vivekananda and upon his own deliberations and lifestyle, he was able to attract people. Attracting people is not the objective, by the way. Leading the people in the proper way, and that Bodhanji was able to do. But in spite of roaring success in Pittsburgh, he had to stop that and then come back to New York, because New York there was no replacement. But then were there no other Swami? See, skill is not something that you get for asking. There were so many monks in the order, but not are all alike. But those who have lived the way Vivekananda way, that which we are now all deliberating, they were all able to prove themselves, and then able to actually prove themselves as well as prove the message that Vivekananda has left behind for us. Thank you very much. Any questions?